So about 5,000 miles, 8,000 kilometers, and here we are, leaving Quartzsite. But before I go, we will have part 3 with Bob Wells, the legend of Nomadland. Well, good morning. I'm heading to Joshua Tree tomorrow and stopping in a few tourist sites. So I thought that those people might find it nice if I had a shower recently. So we're heading into Quartzsite. Last time I washed my hair was in Canada 5 days ago, which is not the longest that I have gone out on the road. So in a world of wet wipes and hot water from a camp stove, I thought being in a shower would be really nice. So in Quartzsite, they have a few options for people that don't have showers in a huge RV, and I'm going to the one where you can do your laundry and then go into the shower. So at truck stops, it's about $17 for a shower, and here in Quartzsite, the one at the laundromat, while you're doing your laundry, for between $2 and $6, depending on the load. The shower is $11. There can often be a lineup, but because I'm going to do my laundry at the same time and get everything ready after being in the desert with everything dusty for a while, well, other than a week in a very cold Ottawa capital, that's what we're going to do today. So, and then we're going to get everything cleaned up and ready to go, and the kitchen all packed up and stuff. So I am going to show you what that looks like. And just like that, I'm all clean. I'm going to insert some of the video that I took into this, but I just wanted to sort of explain it a bit. Is just about Boxing Day, Quartzsite. Well, I mean, today, Boxing Day, was pretty quiet because I did go into town as well, but it is stunning, the number of people flooding into Quartzsite. It is just now vehicles as far as you can see. So we went to the laundromat. That was full, obviously, because, I have a clip in my hair. It's embarrassing. So we went to the laundromat, and it was fascinating. Just people of all walks of life, and everybody friendly and happy. And then we went and got gas for our trip tomorrow to California, because California gas prices are just insane. I made that mistake once when I was on my way to Las Vegas for the plane to go to Canada. So we're full. And then we stopped at the grocery store, and there was a sign that said, "Truck coming tomorrow, sorry." And this is pretty much the only place in town to get produce. So I will show you my $14 salad. And that was a little surprising, but it's hard to estimate how many people will be here. They say easily 1 million people will spend from after Christmas through until where winter is in other climates. Today it's 20 degrees Celsius, so it's just beautiful. The nights get a little chilly, a few blankets, and I do have my super duper sleeping bag. So all the laundry is done. Time to kind of reassemble everything and then get ready to leave tomorrow morning for Joshua Tree. Interesting, because Joshua Tree campgrounds, it's a national park, they don't have showers at all. And we will be a little limited on where, excuse me, Buddy can go. Because there aren't that many trails, so that will be interesting. But we're going to go into town. I'm going to get the oil change there, because here in Quartzsite, the waiting list for an oil change was a week to 10 days. So we're going to do our oil change. We're not desperate for an oil change, but it is time. And we're going to do that. So the final day in Quartzsite was interesting. And I have to say, I'm not entirely disappointed to be getting out before the hordes descend. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow, is just, go somewhere else. We could always come back here. I do love it. Very strange town for people that are not familiar with this kind of life. But it's It's a place where everybody who lives in a vehicle feels welcome, and I really like that. And with all of this wide open space, we have been working on Buddy being off leash and knowing that he needs to come back when I call his name. He's doing really well. Good boy. 80% of the time. Good boy. There's a lot now, of back to Bob Wells that before I go here are really struggling, and they don't have, I'm very fortunate. I have a power bank. I have a zero sleeping bag. But when you find them, just explain what happens.
Well, a lot of the community has just gotten an eviction notice, and so they've got a month and they've got to move into their car and they've got to leave, and everything they own is going to fit in that car. Well, they're not. Some of them have never camped before. I run into people who have never left their home state, and now all of a sudden they're driving across the country and living in the woods, living in the desert, and they are just really lost and confused, and they're afraid, which is completely reasonable and normal. And so the idea behind Howa is we try to meet them.
Sorry, Home on Wheels Alliance,
yes.
Right? Yeah,
yes.
Home on Wheels Alliance.
Yeah. The name of the organization is Home on Wheels Alliance, and Howa, and that's its call. People who have gotten on the road and are really struggling with it for whatever reason. So if you break down on the road, we have an emergency fund. You can contact the emergency fund. Said all my tires are all bald and I've got to replace them all. I just can't go on in these dangerous tires anymore. We will find a mechanic nearby, and we will contact them, and we will pay for the tires, and you go there and they'll put on 4 new tires. We've done transmission rebuilds. We've done just a little bit of everything. And so the emergency fund is one of the things I'm most proud of. I think we're closing in on $100,000 that we have donated, and we often find that when we contact the repair shop, they will donate a portion because we're matching, and then we just end up matching. We end up paying the whole thing sometimes, but we find that a lot. At any rate, that's one of the things we do. You mentioned power bank specifically.
Power banks,
We will either find someone to donate power banks to us,
because people give you products,
a lot of products,
and then you don't keep them or sell them on the internet. You find someone that needs them,
pass them along to someone in need.
Was that always part of your early days, this giving? And because I know, because I've watched every video you've ever done, you get these things because people realize that you're a very strong marketing tool.
Yes.
But then you test it, and then you give it to, if you deem that it's up to snuff, then you give it to other people who need it.
Yes.
And you do it so regularly. Do you still understand how important it is to that person? Because it's part of your life, but for them it changes their lives.
Well, one of the things that we do is we do what we call BYOV, bring your own vehicle. Mm-hmm. So we'll put out a call. If you need work done to make your vehicle comfortable, I'm going somewhere. I'm answering your question.
Yeah.
I'm in a roundabout way. And then, so we'll have, maybe we'll have 20 or 30 people come in the course of a week. And then we'll get 20 or 30 volunteers that will come who have those skills. And then Howa will buy the materials, and we'll put in insulation, and we'll put in a floor, we'll put in insulation, we'll install solar, we'll build a bed. I mean, as simple as taking seats out and building a bed. Whatever you need done, we will do. And if you'd ever come to one of those, and the people who are receiving it's life-changing.
Yes.
To all of a sudden have a bed in your home when you're sleeping in the car seat, the back seat, is life-changing. And the volunteers are come, and they change these people's lives.
And probably their lives are changed too.
There are going to be buckets, gallons of tears shed, and by both sides, because one has been blessed in the gift, and one has been blessed in the giving. And to go there and see that, it's a life-changing thing.
So, as you know, I flew into Las Vegas not sure about this time, but it was around midnight. And then I drove 1 hour to along the 95. There was a very nice, and I had looked it up on iOverlander, which I use a lot, and there was a very nice roadside stop. When I woke up in the morning, there was a couple who clearly are having a rough time. And they don't have the bed in the back, and
Right.
they're sleeping in their seats. And there's very nice bathrooms there, which are very important when you're on the road. Very important to know about bathrooms on the road and how everybody manages that. And I was hesitant, and quite honestly, I didn't go and say, if you're looking for somebody, come here because you can learn all these things. And they looked lost and heartbroken, and they had their car. And they didn't even have window covers, which, as you know, are a major part of what we do.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of people who need to know more about the options because they've hit the road. Oh yeah, buddy, there's a cyclist. Hi. Okay. And until they find the resources, which brings me back to you and Hawa, is once people find the resources, it's life-changing.
Yes.
It really is, because they're not alone anymore.
Right.
Like these people that I saw this morning, I'm assuming feel very much alone.
Yes.
And once
And
they
hopeless.
and hopeless, they're living in their vehicles and they don't have the stuff that we all eventually get, power, solar, and some people buy that in dribs and drabs because it's expensive to buy some of this stuff. I mean, you know, when I first met you, that mine had been, taken in North Carolina by somebody that I'm sure that needed them more than I did because it was during the hurricane relief. But these things can be expensive. And I've watched your videos enough to know that in the United States, some people are getting $800 a month on Social Security.
Yes.
$800 a month.
Well, in the U.S., Social Security is based on what you put in. And so in my generation, I'm older than you are, in my generation, so if a woman is in her late 60s, 70s, maybe even her 80s, there are women out here in their 80s, and they were told as young girls just to get married, have kids, stay home, and everything would work out great. And so they didn't build a Social Security. And when then time passes and they still haven't worked, maybe later on they get a job, but in the U.S. at least, wages are lower for women, much lower. Entry-level jobs are kind
Similar.
of nothing.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
similar.
I think that's true of all the developed
I mean,
world.
particularly with the generation.
Right.
Particularly is that
They didn't gain a skill because they didn't go to college. They didn't get a skill. They don't have a work history. So they're working at the minimum wage jobs.
Yeah.
And then by the time they turn 60 or 70, then they would go to their Social Security, and it's just $1,000 or less. I know someone who's 600. They're living on $600 a month. And you can't possibly live in this country on $600 a month.
Yeah.
So
I
and then
know
a lot of times what will happen is the husband will divorce them, or the husband will die.
will die.
And then in the U.S., the husband's is much larger Social Security, but she only gets half. So whatever he had, it's either half of his or hers, and almost always half of his is most, and it's still not enough.
I met a woman at Lulu's event on the Texas beach coast, and her husband died of Parkinson's and was hit by a car, so medical expenses as well. And she had $12,000 total, like that's all she had. And so she bought a van, and I asked her, it's a little box attached to her. She had a pickup truck, so it's attached to her pickup truck. And I asked her how she was doing, and she said she's never been happier.
Yeah.
Never been happier.
Yeah.
And there she was with 100 women during Lulu's meetup at Magnolia Beach. Lovely if you ever want to go there. And, you know, that was her reality. But it's the fear that I know that we talked about earlier of, well, I can't do that. And I interviewed a woman who was 82 and had recovered from cancer. And she was hilarious, but her opinion was, what was I going to do, sit at home and die? And it was amazing. But the aging process, for me, and writing this book, I'm looking for the threads that kind of tie it together. I have found a few threads. Something happens, whether it's financial, whether it's a death in the family, whether it's a healthcare, something happens to get the brain kind of going that way. And you are, as I always say, the godfather of van life, but you've corrected me that it existed long before that. How do you manage your retirement? Because you're a really busy person. I mean, you're making videos, out here, we meet off site because, I'm sure if you went to the laundromat for a shower, you have to talk to 15 different people in line. How are you managing the weight that, Quartzsite will be 1 million people probably by February. How do you deal with the weight of that?
Well, it's all offset by joy, the joy I get from knowing that I've made a difference in people's lives. I've
sure
made
beats sitting in an
lives
old
better.
age home.
Pardon me?
Sure beats sitting in an old age home.
Yeah. I'm only 69, almost 70, and so no, I don't even think of that as old anymore. And so I've got my health, and I've got the majority of my mental facilities still functioning pretty darned well, I think. In fact, I think that doing this has kept me, I probably, if I had not been doing all this, I think my mental capacity would have been much less. My memory wouldn't have been as less. I have to keep things in mind all the time. And no, I think I am far better off physically and mentally, emotionally, because of doing this. Like you said, I could be sitting at home in a rocking chair. Man, my life would be greatly shortened if I had stayed at home in a rocking chair.
I think of, so for people that don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you were working in a grocery store and living in a van in Alaska in order to pay child support.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you were still working in that grocery store?
Oh, I can't. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about that. No, that was. It wasn't. I do it if you have. You do what you have to do. We all do. Every one of us. We just do what we have to do. But no, I wouldn't want to be living that life.
And you set yourself up in a vehicle in Alaska. So one of the things that everybody loves about Quartzsite is that we can pretty much manage. The wind is great today, or you'd have the little windsock on your microphone, but that's an important element. Is I've heard some of the women talk about chasing the 70s.
Yeah.
Is that because you're in a vehicle, if the weather, I came out of a snowstorm 24 hours ago in Canada to get here, and in this lifestyle, you just follow the weather. If there is, as you've seen with forest fires, you can move and you don't have to pack up anything because it's already in there.
Right.
So there is this ability to adapt to the changing weather that you referred to.
Yes.
And I know that you have property somewhere else. So how important is the weather to your movements? Because you obviously are a champion for a whole bunch of people, but you also have to make personal decisions about where you're happy, where the temperatures are okay. I don't think you get the humidity that we have in my part of Ontario, but it's very important for living because, sleeping in a 90-degree vehicle isn't a whole lot of fun.
No, it's total misery.
Yeah.
No, I nearly all nomads, unless you can afford to settle down into an RV park where you can get electricity and hookups so that you can overcome the weather. We travel with the weather. So I will spend 4 months here in the Arizona desert, and it's mostly very pleasant. We do get windstorms, and there's some cold nights sometimes. Cold's, pretty relative. It's 40.
It's not the kind of cold that I'm familiar with.
A cold night is 40.
Yeah.
And
a sleeping bag will do it.
Yes. All you gotta do is put a couple more extra blankets on. But then the summer's unbearable here, and so you gotta leave. But you don't have to go very far. If you can get up to 8,000 feet, you're going to be comfortable. In 8,000 feet in the shade in the forest, you're comfortable. It's not a problem. Yeah. And you don't have to go very far. You can never leave the state of Arizona and be comfortable year round. There's an elevation that will provide you with that comfort. But, you know, a lot of us can afford the gas, so I go to Colorado and get up to 12,000 feet, and then it's beautiful and it's different. Go to Oregon and go on the coast where the weather's very pleasant on the coast, or Washington on the coast, or Washington in the mountains, or Idaho, or, you know, you travel with the weather. And then when the weather turns, then you progressively are going to move your way south and lower elevation as winter comes on, and then you end up back down here. Or in Texas, you mentioned Texas, or Florida.
I spent a lot of time in Texas.
Yeah, a great place in the winter.
Yeah.